Let's make my broken picture frame quilt pattern using a layer cake. Layer cakes are 10-inch squares, and for this pattern you will need one layer cake bundle yielding you a 51-inch by 59.5-inch quilt, or you can use 80 10-inch squares to create a jumbo twin size quilt measuring at 68 inches by 85 inches, just to give you a few more options. This pattern is perfect for directional prints, as you will see in the cutting instructions. However, pay close attention to how we cut it, because any other way will not yield enough fabric within a 10-inch square. A rotating mat will also help out, but is not required. We will be cutting our strips in a clockwise rotation. With that said, you will cut a 2.5-inch by 9-inch rectangle on the top. Then on the right side, a 2.5-inch by 7-inch rectangle. On the bottom is another 2.5-inch by 7-inch rectangle. And lastly, a 2.5-inch by 5-inch rectangle on the left side. You will be left with a 5-inch square in the center. All of these measurements will be listed down below in the video's description, and go ahead and repeat this step for all of your 10-inch squares. Once everything is cut, we will mix up our fabric prints and sew everything back together in a counterclockwise rotation. First, take the center 5-inch square and sew it to the 2.5-inch by 5-inch rectangle on the left side with a 1/4-inch seam allowance. Next, take your bottom 2.5-inch by 7-inch rectangle and sew it to the bottom of your unit with a 1/4-inch seam allowance. Then take your right 2.5-inch by 7-inch rectangle and sew it to the right side of your unit with a 1/4-inch seam allowance. And lastly, take your 2.5-inch by 9-inch rectangle and sew it to the top of your unit to form a 9-inch square. And that's it. This block is inspired by a square in a square or a frame square quilt block, which is why I named it a broken picture frame. Repeat this step until all of your blocks are complete, and once all of your blocks are made, you will lay them out in a 6 by 7 block layout while rotating each block 90 degrees, or a 8 by 10 block layout for the twin size quilt. Then, as always, sew your blocks together to form rows, and lastly, sew your rows together to complete your quilt top. Here is what my broken picture frame looks like all finished. For the backing, I am using a coordinating print from within the collection. Then for the thread choice, I am going with glide threads in the color Seafoam Green. And here is what my quilt looks like all quilted out. Once again, one layer cake bundle will yield you a 51-inch by 59.5-inch quilt, or 80 10-inch squares will yield a jumbo 68-inch by 85-inch twin size quilt, to give you a few more options. Now, I do hope you have enjoyed today's tutorial. If you could please take a moment to hit that like and subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you can be notified for your next amazing quilt project.